And a couple of weeks ago, I was in China for work, and I started noticing that Lotso from Toy Story 3, I think it is, was sort of everywhere. On water bottles, on scooters, on paddings of the electric bikes they have there in China. It was literally on any kind of object, even a car, even a Tesla. After some time, I started asking myself, why would this happen?
What was it about seeing this character that made you think, okay, this is off?
I mean, it's a villain. It's a character that's only in one film, and he's extremely popular. He's really everywhere in China.
Marco sent me this question, but he's not the first person to ask it.
China, can you please explain
this obsession with Lotso?
Sorry, why are they obsessed with Lotso?
Lotso beer, he is everywhere, like honestly.
He started popping up everywhere. Everywhere.
For the past couple of weeks, I've been going down a rabbit hole of intellectual property licensing and Chinese viral trends and a decade-long legal battle over the right to use this character in the first place, all just to answer Marco's question. How does a kind of forgettable Pixar character become so incredibly popular in just one part of the world? Why does China love Lotso? Before doing anything else, I rewatched Toy Story 3 for the first time in almost 15 years. So if you don't totally remember who Lotso is either, here's a recap. As their owner Andy is going off to college, the gang winds up accidentally donated to Sunnyside, a daycare run by
Lotso Huggin' Bear, but please call me Lotso.
Lotso. Sunnyside first seems like a paradise, but it quickly turns out to be a nightmare. And Lotso...
Lotso? The guy may seem plush and huggable on the outside, but inside, he's a monster.
Lotso turns out to be a cruel and controlling leader, spiteful from having been abandoned by his owner. And he ultimately tries to kill the gang in an incinerator in what is maybe the bleakest scene in a Disney movie ever. But canonically, he smells like strawberries, so that's nice.
We do have a lot of great new characters, lots of Huggin' Bear.
Toy Story 3 was a big movie. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature.
Toy Story 3.
And it was the world's highest grossing movie in 2010, bringing in more than $1 billion at the box office. But Lotso never had that much cultural staying power. If we look at Google search trends since Toy Story 3 came out, we can see that Lotso is dwarfed by the popularity of Buzz and Woody. And Buzz and Woody are dwarfed by the popularity of characters like Mickey Mouse, Winnie-the-Pooh, even Stitch. Lotso's barely above the x-axis here. Now, this Google search trend data doesn't include China. Marco had sent me some photos while he was in China, but I needed to find out just how big of a phenomenon Lotso actually was there, starting with Disney itself. On the Disney Store website, you can see there are some Lotso products available in the US. But when you change .com to .asia, there were 3 times as many. On maps of Shanghai Disneyland, you can see a Lotso gift store and a Lotso restaurant. This popularity isn't just limited to Disney's own stores and resorts. There are Lotso special editions of electric vehicles, mopeds, smartphones, shoes, computer accessories, luggage, and, of course, lots and lots of Lotso toys, including a 5-foot stuffed Lotso you can buy at Costco in Shenzhen, which apparently you can...
You can pull a blanket out of its BUTT hole.
Okay, that's enough of that. I did a lot of searching for Lotso's name for this story, and if it ever makes you wonder if people are doing this kind of searching for your name, they are. These days, just about anybody can get your phone number, your email address, or even your home address because data brokers buy your information and sell it without your consent. Sites like this are legally required to remove your information if you request, but it is not easy on purpose. This genuinely used to bother me a lot, but that is where the sponsor of this video can help. Aura is a service that identifies data brokers selling your information and submits opt-out requests for you. Aura doesn't just remove your data once. They keep monitoring and automatically sending new opt-out requests if it pops back up. And since certain personal information can be a goldmine for scammers, Aura also backs you up with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, just in case. You can go to my link at aura.com/Christophe to try 14 days for free. There's often a lot more about you on the internet than you realize, but Aura can help. Okay, with that, let's get back to Lotso. What's interesting, though, is that it's not just in China. Lotso's also become a phenomenon in Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, the Philippines, and Malaysia. But I knew that if I really wanted to understand how popular Lotso was in China, I was going to have to look on Chinese social media. So I downloaded RedNote and WeChat, and I searched for Lotso there. And I was not prepared for what I saw.
饮料、食物都有草莓熊造型，
嘟嘟的超可爱。
过几天情人节还没准备礼物的，
真的特别好，关键还送可爱的草莓熊公仔和精美贴，品级的硅胶软管可以吸冷饮，
就连屁股都是香香的。
This was the real picture of just how viral Lotso actually was in China. A lot of times these fans wouldn't even call him Lotso. They would call him
草莓熊，
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 草莓熊。
Strawberry Bear. So how did all this happen? Before I started doing any reporting on this, Marco and I talked about what we thought the answer could be, and we came up with 3 hypotheses. Great. My hypothesis, a hypothesis that we'd seen on Reddit, and his hypothesis. Mine was that maybe it's not that complicated. Different things can go viral in different places in different ways. On the Chinese internet, a firewall filters through all foreign content and censors material the government doesn't want its population to see. Sam made a great video about all of this that you can watch over at Search Party. But the point is that things can go viral on the Chinese internet in a way that's completely isolated from internet trends in the rest of the world. Then there's the Reddit hypothesis. A few commenters on Reddit suggested that Chinese companies might be making so much Lotso merchandise because he's a cheaper Disney character to license. The cost of licensing a character typically varies depending on how popular a character is and how popular their franchise is. So the logic goes, if more companies can afford the rights to make Lotso merchandise, there's going to be more Lotso merchandise on the market. And then there's Marco's hypothesis.
My first thought was, well, maybe it's something induced from the government, in the sense that it was maybe related to the Winnie-the-Pooh case where they,
China is censoring the Winnie-the-Pooh on social media.
After opponents likened his appearance to President Xi Jinping.
The Beijing censors are being very vigilant in protecting his image.
In 2013, Chinese internet users started using memes comparing President Xi Jinping to Winnie-the-Pooh to discreetly criticize government policies. And in response, the government started censoring references to Winnie-the-Pooh on social media, and the character became a political symbol.
So yeah, my first reaction was maybe the government was trying to push a character, sort of a similar character, to replace Winnie-the-Pooh, but it's a far-fetched guess.
Marco's hypothesis was that Lotso wasn't just a character who happened to go viral. He was a state-sanctioned replacement for a character who'd become a symbol of resistance. So we had 3 hypotheses lined up, and I didn't know if I could get to the bottom of all of them, but I was going to try. And I found an answer immediately. On literally the first page of search results, there were 3 separate articles answering the exact question we were trying to answer. But as I started to read, something about the articles felt off. The explanations they gave for Lotso's popularity in China were strange. One said that Chinese fans admire his charisma, intelligence, and leadership, and also sympathize with his backstory. Another said that Lotso has a narrative thread that parallels historical and political themes familiar to Chinese history. I didn't buy it. I don't think people are purchasing this.
You can pull a blanket out of his...
Because the character's moral ambiguity resonates with Chinese cultural values. This was odd. Why would there be 3 separate articles on the internet, all of them answering the exact same question that we had been asking, and all of them doing it with these bizarre philosophical explanations for why this bear went viral? Then I noticed this. Costco. One article described a collab event between Disney and Costco, the American warehouse store chain, that featured a giant inflatable Woody at the entrance to the store. I knew from other media coverage and sources on social media that it was true that the Costco in Shenzhen drew big crowds for their giant Lotso. But that is not how you spell Costco. I put this photo and the text of these articles into AI-generated content detectors, and while it's worth remembering that these tools aren't perfect, every tool I used was very sure that both this image and the text of these articles were all AI-generated, so these were probably content farms made for getting clicks. If you ask ChatGPT why Lotso is popular in China, these are the sources it's going to cite. I don't really know why these exist. maybe enough people asked this question on the internet that it became profitable enough to have a content farm to mine some clicks off of this. But whatever the answer was, if we were going to find the real story, we were going to have to dig a little deeper. I went back to the Google search interest graph and I looked at how many people have searched for Lotso. The data doesn't include China, but it does include the other countries where Lotso has also gone viral. So it can give us an approximate measure of when this trend started. You can see searches spike right after the movie's release, then right after the DVD came out, and then tiny peaks every holiday gift season, and a small spike the summer Toy Story 4 came out, but mostly nothing. Until at the end of 2022, searches skyrocketed. Lotso was as popular on search in December 2023 as he was in July 2010, right after the movie came out. So what changed right there? Who started this trend? I scrolled back really far to try to find some of the earliest mentions of Lotso on social media, and I came across Bryan and Isabella.
We actually have an example of a Lotso merchandise here.
No way.
Yeah, so you can see how cute it is from just the box itself.
They're a creator couple based in Singapore who make content about Disney parks and merchandise. Well, just to cut to the big question here, do you know why Lotso took off the way he did? Is there a specific reason that you can point to explain it all?
Us Asians just love cute stuff, really love cute stuff. And that's the reason why this Japanese term called kawaii or cute is very popular.
Yeah, so the whole thing that kind of exploded was because of Miniso.
Miniso. It's a Chinese retailer that sells pop culture merchandise.
In 2021, they did a collaboration with Toy Story, and then they started coming out with all the blind boxes.
I went to Miniso too.
Blind boxes are a type of collectible figurine released as a series in identical boxes, so you don't know what you're going to get until you open it.
Yay, new one! Oh, this is amazing!
We realized that from all these blind boxes, people are always looking for Lotso.
Oh, yeah!
People are always going to the cashier and asking, can I change this to be Lotso?
And then the next time around when they released a series, it was entirely Lotso.
Lots of huggins. So let's see what we got.
They're all so cute. I want them all.
And this was like the explosion.
What do you think it is about Miniso that enabled them to start a trend this big?
Because Miniso has a global operations. They are able to not only do the business in China itself, but they can push it out to Hong Kong. It goes out to Vietnam. It goes all the way down to even Singapore. I think Miniso found maybe a recipe that really works for them. And that influence has really spread across the world.
So I scrolled all the way back on WeChat to try to find the earliest possible mentions of Lotso and Toy Story in 2021. When was the first time it was mentioned? And I found this, Miniso's announcement of its collaboration with Toy Story from April 2021. 6 months later, at the end of 2021, they announced the collaboration that is entirely Lotso. But then I found something even older. An ad for a clothing collaboration between Toy Story and a fashion brand called Only, from January 2021. So Miniso wasn't the first company to make Lotso merch in China, but it seems like it could be the one that made Lotso go viral. To try to get a better idea of why, I went to each of Miniso's 4 locations in Manhattan and took a look around. Miniso specializes in IP collaborations. They buy the rights to popular creative properties and then churn out affordable merchandise based on those beloved characters. One report I found said that the company spent roughly $25 million on IP licensing in just the first half of 2024. You can see why a character like Lotso made sense as an IP collaboration when you walk into a Miniso store, because pink is everywhere. It's right there in the name of Miniso's flagship store in Shanghai, where a massive Lotso sits on the building facade. Even with IP that you wouldn't associate with the color pink, Miniso finds the one pink thing in the cinematic universe and turns it into merchandise. You also can't really shop online, so you have to go into the stores, and the stores are designed specifically to encourage people to post about them online. In these slides from a presentation to investors, the company specifically calls out IP check-in points, which is just a corporate way of saying a spot to take photos for social media. And finally, it's also about volume. The company follows what it calls the 7-11 strategy. Every 7 days, it launches 100 new products from a lineup of 10,000 possible options. So stores have new stuff constantly. If you go to the Disney store in Times Square, excuse me, do you guys have any Lotso stuff? Lotso the bear? You can get exactly 4 items of Lotso merch. But if you head downtown, all the way to the Miniso flagship store in Soho, you can find more than 30 different Lotso products. And they have 6,000 stores like this across the world. So in a lot of ways, it makes sense. This is a pink-obsessed brand that does IP collaborations, that has a constant stream of new merchandise. If anyone was going to make Lotso go viral, Miniso could.
They are kind of just throwing pasta at the wall to see what sticks, and they landed at Lotso Bear.
That's Yaling Jiang. She writes a Substack about Chinese consumer trends. I reached out to her to better understand what all of this means for our 3 hypotheses, starting with the IP costs.
Miniso is a giant in China. It could afford a Toy Story's IPs, but other smaller brands cannot. Maybe after Miniso has made it a success story, other brands realize that they only need to acquire the Lotso Bear IP. They don't need to buy Toy Story IP.
So Miniso basically proved to every other brand that if they wanted to get in on the trend, they only had to license one character, Lotso. And then I asked her about mine.
They like how cute it is. And that's why the mass audience likes anything. It has to be simple.
Then I asked her about Marco's hypothesis.
One big factor in making an IP successful in China is to mimify it. But with IPs like Winnie-the-Pooh, because it's censored, people cannot distribute memes. So that also stops it from getting super popular. I think that's a big reason why it can never be as popular as Lotso Bear.
So maybe all of these hypotheses are a little bit true. I reached out to Disney and Miniso for comment, but as of this video publishing, they haven't responded. But after we spoke, Yaling showed me a couple more things too. First were trend charts from Baidu, the dominant search engine in China. Since the end of 2021, right when Miniso launched its all Lotso collection, Lotso has consistently been more popular in search than Buzz Lightyear and Woody, and almost always more popular than Mickey Mouse and Winnie-the-Pooh. And then she showed me this article. In September 2024, a Disney executive named Kermit Raman spoke at a conference in Shanghai. He's the senior vice president and general manager for Disney Consumer Products in Asia Pacific. He said that in 2021, quote, "My colleagues and I launched a series of Strawberry Bear themed products and marketing activities, turning Strawberry Bear, a villain with only one movie, into a popular character with personality." Those products and marketing activities include partnerships like the one with Miniso that is probably still the reason why the whole thing went mega viral, but it means that Lotso's popularity was planned from the top down from the very beginning. I called Marco back to tell him what I'd found. But yeah, that's about all I got.
Okay, that's a lot. And there wasn't a viral video on TikTok, or I don't know if they had Red Note at the time, when you have the spike in searches?
That's a good question. I couldn't find any single viral video, but there were a lot of these unboxing blind box videos because they make for inherently good social media content, but nothing that I saw in particular that had like an extraordinary number of views.
That's even more surprising in a way. It's interesting to hear about like something becoming viral today without the internet. I mean, I can't think of anything else that is so viral without the internet nowadays.
Totally. And I mean, I don't want to say it's like without the internet, but it's almost primarily a physical merchandise phenomenon. The internet popularity is going to help sell that to a degree. But also to a big degree, it's, you know, something that's primarily happening out there in the real world with people seeing these things out there in the street, wanting to buy their own. Toward the end of reporting this whole thing, I found something that turned my whole perspective on this story upside down. This is a Lots of Hugs bear. It's a brand of stuffed animals with hollowed out arms that you can slide your hands into like a sleeve so that you can hug yourself or hug someone else like this. These were designed by a toy developer named Randy Altschul back in 1994. And when Toy Story 3 came out, she sued.
Disney headed to court over one of the characters in their beloved Toy Story franchise. Lotso Huggin', a New Jersey-based company, is claiming they had a trademark on the bear.
And it's Lotso Hugs and Lotso Huggin'. I mean, those are very, very similar in name.
Altschul's company is called Dies Lisa Industries, and it argued that Lotso Huggin' Bear was too similar to the Lots of Hugs brand, and that Disney's Lotso had had a negative effect on Dies Lisa's ability to sell its own Lots of Hugs toys. For over a decade, the case made its way through courts, and Disney's Lotso was repeatedly protected under what's called the Rogers Test, a legal test that allows artists to use trademarks without permission as long as the use has artistic relevance and doesn't explicitly mislead consumers. But in June 2023, the Supreme Court reined in the protections of the Rogers Test when it ruled that the First Amendment didn't protect this dog chew toy, parodying Jack Daniel's whiskey. And because of that ruling, the Supreme Court asked a lower court to reconsider Dies Lisa's case. I reached out to Randy Altschul and she didn't get back to me, and the case is still ongoing. But all of this means that this whole time, the unfathomable amounts of money made on merchandise that went viral in China and then spread to countries nearby all began with a character that Disney is actively fighting over the right to use. This has been the most comprehensive answer I could give to Marco's question, but I think the story of why China loves Lotso still has more chapters to go. Thank you so much for watching. This has been episode 6 of Tunnel Vision. I cover stories on this channel about how we find answers on the internet. If you like that, you like this episode, you want to see more, you should subscribe. Episodes like this are so much fun to make, where I get to start with an authentic question from a viewer like you and just research it as deeply as I possibly can. If you have a question like Marco did, please send it my way. My DMs are open on social media, or you can drop it in the comments because we read all of them. Okay, see you next time.